Tim Shepherd with Triple J News. The New South Wales Independent Commission Against Corruption has found the former Premier Gladys Berejiklian engaged in serious corrupt conduct in office by failing to disclose a secret relationship with another politician. Here's Isabel Rowe.
The ICAC began publicly investigating Gladys Berejiklian's relationship with Wagga Wagga MP Darryl Maguire in 2021 after revealing it had been tapping their phones. A report released today has found Ms Berejiklian engaged in corrupt conduct by awarding money to his electorate without disclosing the relationship. It also found her failure to alert the ICAC about Mr Maguire's suspicious activities was corrupt conduct. A serious corrupt conduct finding has also been made against Mr Maguire for his cash for visa scheme. He'll be referred to police for possible criminal charges.
Australian researchers are calling for an end to the use of opioid drugs for the treatment of acute back and neck pain. New research has found that the pain-relieving medicines are no more effective than a placebo. Current guidelines recommend that when it comes to treating back pain, opioids should only be used at the lowest dose and for the shortest time possible. But Professor Christine Lin from the Uni of Sydney says the study provides evidence that opioids should not be recommended at all.
Our message to GPs and other doctors who prescribe opioids is that prescribing opioids doesn't actually help the cause and can increase the risk of harm.
1,000 plumbers and electricians in Victoria will receive free training to help install clean energy products. The training program will cost around $3 million. Premier Daniel Andrews says the government's investing in creating a clean energy workforce.
The plumbers will learn how to design and install energy-efficient heat pumps and solar hot water systems. More and more Victorians, as we know, are turning to heat pumps and making the switch to energy-efficient electric homes. Sparkies as well will get training in everything they need to know about rooftop solar and home battery systems.
The Australian Space Agency has awarded a contract to an exploration firm which may lead to having Australian technology on the moon. Fleet Space Technologies Chief Exploration Officer and co-founder Matthew Pearson says the program aims to develop technologies which will play a huge role in Moon to Mars exploration. He's told ABC Radio Melbourne technology is being developed to look for water and caves on Mars, which he says is the next major migration for humanity.
So the long-term goal here is, Moon to Mars, using the moon to demonstrate technologies and probably as a stopping point on the way to getting out to Mars, which is much, much further away.
Just quickly, 3 members of the Rebels bikie gang have been arrested in central Victoria this morning. It comes after an alleged assault in North Bendigo in May that left a man in hospital. Triple J.
Triple J's Hottest 100 of Like a Version.
What are you voting for?
Tame Impala, Confide in Me. Little Sims, Feel Good Inc.
Love forever, love is free, let's turn together, you and me.
Triple J's Hottest 100 of Like a Version.
Vote now at the Triple J website.
On Triple J, we are getting into science over the next hour. 0439 757 555. Dr. Karl will be in the studio answering your questions. All you got to do is answer your phone. But firstly, all you got to do is send me what you want to know. Please, 0439 757 555. We'll get into it after this from Ziggy Rama. This is Better.
Have grown day by day, I know it all gets better. Gets better. Brick by brick to build me up. Day by day, I know it all gets better. Gets better.
Mental health rooted deep in my family tree. We planted seeds in a toxic society. I break my bones, I get rushed to the doctors. If I break my mind, I hide that shit inside my hurt locker. Become the best actor, I know gender's a factor. We say we ain't affected until our mind's infected. Until my sister and my brother-in-law be sleeping on my floor. Cause there's no way to be sure if I'm gonna make it through the night. Out like a light, I don't know if I'm alright. Suicide on my mind all the time. Jesus Christ, they check my drawers for knives. I ain't got the tools to go and make it through this life, through the strife. She hold my hand and told me it's gonna be okay. She took me to the doctors, told me not to be afraid. Sitting in waiting rooms without any room to wait. I don't know if I'm gonna make another day.
Cast the shadow
man up and be okay. Yeah. But I ain't gonna make another day. I'm sitting in front of therapists, not knowing what to say. Accepting that I'm weak is really what made me brave. I won't ever be this shit, no way it can be defeated. You don't wake up without it, you just learn to live with it. You just learn a different way to process things up in your brain. It ain't really that simple, progress produces pain. Some days I didn't think I'd make it through, running around without a clue, stuck in sorrow like it's glue. It gets better, where's the proof? Hard to recognize change when you are you every day becomes mundane. Looking back, I know that I've been making strides. Every day it's an accomplishment, I'm still alive. So today I celebrate the pain we overcame. I know it's not gone, but we still remain.
Cast the shadow I have grown day by day. I know it all gets better, gets better. Brick by brick to build me up. Day by day, I know it all gets better, gets better. It all gets better, gets better. It all gets better, gets better.
Ziggy Rama, better on Triple J, which is about to get taken over by Dr. Karl. Karl, hello.
Hello and good morning. And I have got some news of incredibly good news.
What is it?
That in Australia, things are so advanced that we actually test for and can fix genetically inherited diseases in a few cases. Now, I don't know about you. I'm not going to try and make you out yourself on TV, on radio, but I have 3 genetic diseases. The first one is that I don't have 4 incisors on the top row of my teeth. I've only got 2.
Oh.
So see, I've got that ever so cute gap. Aren't I lovely?
Yes.
Number 2, I have little bubbles of fat lipomas in my skin, which my father had, and he lost them in the concentration camps. And I've passed them on to my kids, bummer. And thirdly, my shoulder blade, the shoulder is a complicated thing, made mostly of bone, should be all bone. In my case, there's a genetic thing where it doesn't completely fuse, and I've got incomplete fusion of the right acromial tip. But none of these will kill me or are bad. But there is a terrible condition called spinal muscle atrophy, where the muscles of the spine and elsewhere don't mature, and the baby can die before they're 2 years old.
Wow.
And they're born a perfectly normal baby, and you don't really notice anything. If you knew what was going on, by 10 days, you could look carefully and say, oh, yeah, I think I can see this very obscure symptom, but really you just don't pick anything. And so, you know, when newborn babies are born, the medical system stabs them in the heel to get some blood, and they put that on blotting paper. And we don't just test for stuff like thyroid disease and phenylketonuria, which is bad for your brain, but also for this genetic disease, and we can fix it. And there's 24 diseases, and I had no idea until about a week ago.
Wow.
And there's 24 diseases that we can fix in Australia with genetic diseases, and there's a couple more coming. And so far, we've saved 40 lives in Australia. So there's 40 families that are happy with their baby. And basically what they do, they 1 in 50 people carry the gene for spinal muscle atrophy. So 1 in 10,000 babies get born with it. And what you do is you get a bit of adenovirus and you fool around with it, you scrape out the inside of it, and you're just left with this hollow cylinder, and then you shove the right sort of DNA in there, inject it into the bloodstream. It goes inside the nerve body, inside the nerve nucleus, and then gets read, and they're fixed. And I'm just thinking, how happy those families must be that their baby's not dying.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just thought I'd start with a good news story.
Totally.
And the sun's shining as well. There's some more good news.
Okay, well, look, you're feeling posy vibes this morning, Dr. Karl, and that's an amazing story. We can check out more. Is there much online about this that we can get into?
I'm doing a podcast on it, on Shirtloads of Science, and that'll come out in a few weeks' time. Yes, so hang in there. It's a very positive story.
Good. Shirtloads of Science. You can check it out wherever you get your podcasts. And we're going to start off here with Tynan in Torquay. Tynan, you've noticed something after you go for a surf. What's going on?
Yeah, g'day, guys. So sometimes after I go for a surf, it can be an hour or so later, even later on. Whenever I bend over, water will pour out of my nose. I can blow it as hard as I want, but whenever I lower my head, the water will seem to find a way to run out.
Ah, thank God this has happened to somebody else. Does it happen to you, Lucy?
I think so, maybe. Maybe not the... I always find in the ear it comes out hours later.
Now, Tynan, is this related to you getting sort of tossed around a bit in the surf?
Yeah, I'm not a very good surfer, so I find myself under the water a bit doing the tumbles.
Right. So I've had this happen, and in my case what happens is that I go for a swim, tossed around in the surf, come home, have a shower. About an hour later, and we're having around a cup of tea and the guests and the royal family, I don't know who they are, and we've got the best tea out, and I'll lean forward over the table. Mate, about 10 litres just come pouring, okay, like a big blob the size of my thumb comes pouring out, like a thick stream. It just comes out, and mate, it keeps on coming, and it lands on the table. Is that what happens to you, Dr. Tynan?
Yeah, I go give the dolls a kiss in the head, and yeah, she ends up getting washed out of it.
Okay, so what you have in your head to help keep it lighter, we think, are what are called sinuses, S-I-N-U-S, and a sinus is a cavity that has only one opening. You go in, you go out the same way, right? And so you've got them underneath your cheekbones, underneath your eyes, and then in your forehead. And these sinuses, evolution is not perfect, just good enough. And you would think that the drain point for these sinuses would be at the lowest point in the sinus. But no, we evolved from sort of hanging around on all fours to standing upright. And so the drain point is above the lowest point. Bit of a diversion here. With certain brands of the sports car called the MG, the British car in the past, the drain point was about 10 centimetres higher than the lowest point in the boot. And so if it rained, you'd be driving around with a swimming pool in your boot and it would leak. Yes, okay. Getting back to the sinuses. So when you lean forward, then they can drain out. And I don't know why there's that delay, because I'm sure in that hour between when I went for a shower and then the sinus comes out, I'm sure that I must have bent forward, but the water doesn't come out, and I do not know why. And if there's an anatomist or an ENT person, can they possibly ring in and tell us? But so that's what's happening with you, Dr. Tynan. It's just the stuff in your sinuses.
Getting trapped in the sinus, but then this delayed flushing.
Yeah.
Why is it?
Yeah. And I'm so glad that somebody else has it.
Yeah, 0439 757 555. We'll see what we can do, Tynan. We've got Tash in the Yarra Valley. Tash, you are kind of having a bit of a tussle with your boss at the moment. What's happening?
Hi, yeah, I'm a cabinet maker. Like, we're probably in...
Oh, Tash, have I got you?
And every single morning, I want to have the roller door open so I can look outside and see the view and watch the sunrise. And my boss and his son are way too cold, and they don't want the roller door open. So whereas I'm fine and wearing maybe just one more layer than them, they're freezing. Like, what's the difference? Why am I so much warmer than them?
Okay, in general, women are shorter than men and therefore have a higher ratio, and here comes a fancy term, of surface area to body mass. So if you've got a tiny droplet of water, it will radiate its heat out pretty rapidly because it's got a lot of surface area. If you've got a big droplet of water, in compared to its mass, the surface area is not so much, the surface area is lower, so it won't radiate so much heat. So in general, on average, women tend to feel the cold more simply because they've got more surface area than men on average. But then there are a whole bunch of other things. Now we've got the hard physics out of the way. Second thing is, if you have more muscle, and men on average tend to have more muscle than women, that's the testosterone thing. And by the way, women also have testosterone, but at a level about 10 to 20 times lower than men, reaches its peak in the early 20s, gradually drops during life and then comes back up high again to previous female levels around 70. So if you have more muscle, that runs at a higher metabolic rate and generates more heat. That's then part of your overall metabolism. And if you've, for example, gone for a run in the morning before you went to work, then your metabolic rate will be a little bit higher for a little bit longer. Circulation, if you've got better circulation, you'll lose more heat through your skin. What you want is that your skin gets cold, but you keep the heat inside. But the trouble with that is you've got temperature sensors in your skin. So even though you're warmer on the inside, you feel colder. Okay, another little diversion here. Cold hands, warm heart is women. On average, compared to men, women have colder skin but a slightly higher internal temperature. And so on average, women can feel the cold more because the temperature sensors in the skin are saying it's cold, but internally they're warmer. And then you mentioned the other thing, more clothes. So what do you do in the factory? Are you a tradie?
Yeah, we just knock up kitchens and stuff for the houses, basically.
So were you trained as a chippy or a cabinet maker?
Yeah, a cabinet maker.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, usually I'm the warmer one out of the three of us. They're both taller than me, and we're probably all around the same weight as well. But, yeah, generally I'm the warmer one out of us.
Don't have a good explanation for that, but I'm so thrilled to be talking to a cabinet maker because a cabinet maker is a very high level of skill.
I do enjoy it, yeah.
Tash, you just need to tell them to harden up.
Oh, that's a bit mean.
I've tried that. It doesn't work.
There's another factor that on average makes women feel the cold more, which is that with regard to being a fertile woman and losing a bit of blood, that means that they tend to have a little bit more anemia, and that tends to make you feel the cold more. So the straight answer is I don't have a good answer except for the fact that maybe you're wearing more clothes and you're sensible.
Well, that's the thing. It's sometimes, this is obviously a different environment, but you hear of that phenomena where women in office buildings are just freezing, and because the aircon's been turned up, but the men in the office are okay.
Boo the patriarchy.
Yes.
Because the air conditioning is set to a 1970 standard where women would wear lighter dresses, whereas men would wear a three-piece suit. So the whole of modern air conditioning is set to a 1970 standard of a 70-kilogram male in the corner office with all the glass, and the women in the secretarial pool are all working away in their summer dresses with the air blasting down on them cold, so that him in the corner office with the sun shining and his three-piece suit will be comfy. Boo the patriarchy. Okay, I've gone a bit over the top, lefty wokey. Come on down. Newspapers attack me for it. Go ahead.
Dr. Karl, we are answering science questions, or at least trying to. We've got a couple of curly ones. 0439 75 7555. Let me know what you want to put to Dr. Karl. We've gotten a few so far. Make sure you are staying by your phone as well if we give you a call. Right now, this is Greta Ray with Passion. You're listening to Science with Dr. Karl.
I'm coming to learn of the risk that comes with going head first into love like this. Just look at me now, caught up in the heat you emit as you walk in a room, you know that you do. I knew it from the minute that we met. You were a depiction of both a dream and a danger somehow. We never had doubts, but we waited out, giving into the fire till it was down to the wire. It's all I ever have known, wanting you back to the bone. By your love I was thrown since the moment you got me alone. It set us in stone. I knew it from the night that we first loved. I had an addiction to all you were and would for a while. Just give me a reason to feel obliged to pull you aside, familiarize myself with you in private. You are, I am, we're victims of this feeling. Try to deny that rush that you get every time that I give you that touch. It's all you ever have known, wanting me back to the bone. And by my love you were thrown since the moment I got you alone. It set us in stone. It's all I ever have known, wanting you back to the bone, bone, bone. And by your love I was thrown since the moment you got me alone. It set us in stone. trance and state of mind. Passion has had me enchanted. I couldn't take it for granted, even if I tried. It's all I ever have known. Wanting you back to the bone, bone, bone. And by your love I was thrown. Since the moment you got me alone, it set us in stone. It's all I ever have known. Wanting you back to the bone, bone, bone. And by your love I was thrown. Since the moment you got me alone, it set us in stone. You are, I am, we're victims of this feeling.
That's Greta Ray from her record Begin to Look Around with Passion, and the winner of Unearthed High in 2016. This is a competition we run every year, scouting out the best talent from Australian high schools. If you are making music and you're in high school and you're an independent artist, we want to hear from you. Maybe you're in a band, or maybe you know someone who is. triplejaunearth.com is where this happens, and it could potentially be you. All you've got to do is upload your track by July 24. Details you can check out online, but just know if you are someone who is making music and you're in high school, we want to know about you. You're listening to Science with Dr. Karl. We've got Sophie in Queensland. Now, Sophie, you noticed something when you were camping recently. It was real cold. What happened?
Yeah, I woke up in the morning and there was a pretty heavy frost covering everything, my table and all that I left out. And I'd left a couple of pots out and one of them had water in it, and I noticed the water inside had frozen. But on the outside of the pot, no frost had developed on all, whereas I had an empty pot next to it that had developed frost on the top. So I was wondering what the reason behind that is.
Ah, okay, so the pot that we're talking about, it had some water in it, did it?
Yeah, it probably had like a reasonable amount of water.
Okay, and so there was maybe 1/3 full or 1/4 full, something like that, ballpark figure?
Yeah, probably about that, yeah.
Okay, and then the frost had appeared on the inside of the pot, but not the outside.
Yeah, so it'd frozen on the inside, but yeah, nothing on the outside like everything else.
Okay,
so no frosting on the outside or condensation.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to come up with an answer, and I think I've got one, but I really need the physicists to ring in and help me if I've got the right answer. So I'm working this out in my head as I go along. It goes like this. So water is made of molecules, H2O, which look like little boomerangs, and they jiggle around. So there's all these little boomerangs, 104.5 degrees is the angle of the boomerang, and they're jiggling around, and they don't all jiggle at the same amount of jiggle. They have an average jiggle. Some move fast and some move slow. So even when the temperature is just above zero, some of them are jiggling at a temperature corresponding to 100 degrees centigrade. Very few, like maybe 1 in a million. But there are so many trillions of them that, firstly, some of the water molecules are jiggling at a high speed corresponding to being hot and being able to evaporate. And secondly, the coincidence is that they're doing this jiggling when they're at the surface of the water. They can then break away. They break away, they move into the air, and then immediately they're hit entirely by cold air around them. They then condense on the side of the pot, and as they condense, they go into a lower state of energy, they give off heat, and that keeps the outside just a little bit warmer so that it doesn't develop frost on the outside. This is not the best explanation in the world, but I would like any physicist to give me a better explanation. So, and by the way, this is how come when you get water at 20 degrees C and you leave it out in a shallow bowl, by the end of the day it's all gone, even though the temperature at no stage, the average temperature never gets above 20 degrees C. Individual water molecules do reach that speed corresponding to 100 degrees C and break loose, and then the average temperature of the water drops a little bit, maybe to 19.9, and then the sunlight hits it back up to 20, and so gradually you end up with, at no time, the water reaching more than 20 degrees C, but it's all gone by the end of the day because the individual water molecules can have a whole range of jiggles which corresponds to, or jiggling speed, which corresponds to a whole range of temperatures. And it's the hot ones that can break loose. This is very observant of you, Dr. Sophie. I'm very impressed. Was it really cold and like just above zero where you were?
I think it might have been below 0.
Oh, my God. Did you have a proper sleeping bag and everything?
Yes, I was in a swag with a nice thick sleeping bag.
I love the swag. Was it a single swag or a double swag?
Double swag.
Oh, mate, they're the best thing in the world. And it's got a little waterproof cover so you can just stay out in the open and not have to have a separate tent.
It can stay out in the open, yeah. It's pretty well seasoned and waterproofed. It's withstand some pretty heavy rain, so...
I just love the swag for outback travel because you just unroll the swag and there's your bed for the night. None of these poles and everything else. You just got everything in one go.
Ready to go. Well, if you have any follow-up, 0439 757 555, text in. We've got Lance in Coffs right now. Lance, you're kind of staying in the cold weather. What's going on?
Oh, g'day. Just seen something about the ice in Greenland expanding like massively, ice and snow, I think. And something a couple of months back about the same thing in Antarctica. I just want to know if Dr. Karl knows anything about it.
Overwhelmingly, we are losing ice at around 1 billion tonnes a year. There are little bumps here and there, so you get different water flow and different airflow. So while overall Antarctica is losing ice, there are a few inland areas where the air currents are such that they're bringing in water vapour, but overwhelmingly the average is, year to year, that both Iceland and are losing massive amounts of ice. Sometimes you find one tiny area where there is some more ice being laid down, but that is overwhelmed by the amount that we're losing, and that's the bit that's reported by the climate denialist press.
Yeah, right.
But have you got the original article there? Can you chase it up for
us? No, mate. It was just something I seen on the intraweb.
Ah.
How come it's grown? But it said it was like a massive amount. That's why I queried it.
Yeah. I'm sorry. The fossil fuel companies, well, the whole world knew that global warming was real in 1990. You see, the scientists thought it was real around in the early 1980s. The insurance companies knew it was real in 1973. And then they started charging more for insurance premiums for weather-related events. But the scientists needed a higher burden of proof. And they were pretty convinced by the early 1980s. But with science, you can't just look at the past and say this fits our model. You've then got to make projections for the future. And so in the early 1980s, they started making projections saying, this is what our models are saying. And by 1990, enough of them had come true. They said, yeah, it's definitely real. It's caused by carbon dioxide. And the latest I heard just this morning was that unless we do something serious, which we can do, that we will lose the ice in the Arctic by 2050. But we don't want to have that happen. And we can reverse it. I've written a little ABC book, Dr. Karl's little book of climate change science, $10 cheap, a paperback. We can fix it.
I was going to plug that. If you want to go and you really do that so well, Dr. Karl, you kind of map out by dates exactly the process of discovery, if that makes sense, and then that process of avoidance as well. So Dr. Karl's little book of climate science, it's fabulous.
And as an example, even recently, tobacco company executives get up in the American Senate and say, we have never come across any advice that says that tobacco smoking can be bad for your health. And they're just lying like a pig in their own filth. Nothing
Not
personal.
good.
It's just business.
Dr. Karl with you on Triple J answering your science questions. And we've got Susan in Sydney. Now, Susan, you've noticed something about the lack of, I guess, dirt animals they're seeing. What have you kind of noticed?
Well, I do a long-distance endurance riding sport on horseback where I'm riding...
What sort of distances?
Well, at the weekend I did 160 kilometres.
What?
At Imbil.
What?
How long does that take?
Well, the winner did it in 8 hours and 45 minutes of riding time. I did it in 13 hours and 45 minutes.
Wow.
And then there's some people who took 20 hours.
How many breaks does the horse need across 13 hours?
4. They get 4 breaks.
Oh,
wow. And how about you? I mean, you and a horse have to work together and look after each other. How do you feel after that?
Yeah, well, they do vet checks at each one of our breaks. So, yes, the horse have a very strict parameters that they have to recover to before they're allowed to continue. But luckily, they don't do that for the riders.
Oh, come on. I was about to say, do they have a compulsory Susan check?
No, luckily they don't. Otherwise, I would not get through.
Wow, that's so... Sorry to interrupt you, but that's so impressive, Susan. Dr. Susan?
But But so we cover a lot of different terrain. If we go over farmland, I might see, dead bodies of sheep or cattle or, their skeletal remains. But then, and I know that, there's a rumour that dogs and cats, if they want to die, they might try and creep off somewhere and die quietly, privately. But when I'm in the bush, I'm going through bush tracks, I literally never see a carcass or a skeleton of a wombat or a kangaroo or a bird. Nothing. There's no dead bodies in the bush. Why is that so? Where do wild animals go to die?
Well, the poet Tennyson came up with this wonderful phrase, something like, nature is red or bloody in tooth and claw. And sure, if I want to get some food and I'm a lion, I'll go and chase something down. But if there's some dead food, I'll just save effort. So anything gets recycled really quickly. And I've spoken with bushwalkers who have gone out and then come back on the same route. And on the way out, they've seen a freshly dead bird just at the side of the track. And when they come back a few hours later, they look out for it and they see that it's been shifted and it's practically all gone. So the animals have come along, dragged off to one side, and then successive waves of animals go through and pick out what bits that they're specialised for. And I guess all the time you've got the bacteria going away in the background, but in the short term, it's just that they're free food and nobody's going to waste that. And I'm guessing that in the open, where the land has been, cultivated or cleared, then the predators would be too much of a target themselves. But in a bush, if they can just sort of hide under a bush and eat the pigeon or whatever, then they're likely not to be disturbed and get away with it. That's my guess, my theory, my hypothesis. If there's any animal behaviourists out there, please ring in, let us know what the real answer is. That was my guess.
Where do wild animals go to die? Susan, thanks so much for your question.
Thank you, Dr. Susan, and big it up for you.
Yeah.
Endurance horse rider.
That's great.
Wow.
0439 757 555. We need your questions. We're at the halfway point. I want to see you come through. If there's something you want to ask Dr. Karl, let us know. We'll have more for you after this.
Know someone in high school who makes music? Tell them about Unearthed High. We're on the lookout for the best high school act in the country. We've had past winners like Greta Ray, the Ryans, and last year's winner, Jacatine. Tracks need to be uploaded to the Unearthed website by July 24. The winner gets our full support to make their next single. And one First Nations act gets a songwriting camp at their school. Unearthed High 2023. Find out more on the Triple J Unearthed website.